All right, so welcome everybody to the show. Today we're going to be talking with Danielle White from the Connect. But before I can talk, before before we get into any of that,
Beer.
that's right. So, what are you drinking, Danielle?
Oh yeah, so tonight I'm not drinking beer. I'm drinking a nice little hard cider. It's called Chesapeake Cider here. They're a company down here in Maryland. They have actually a pretty cool initiative. They give like a percentage of their proceeds to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So definitely want to represent what they have here. It's pretty good. It's pretty delicious, guys.
And what's the Chesapeake Bay Foundation?
Good question. It's just like environmental, so making sure the bay staying clean, making the earthly safe that way. So
Okay.
a little bit about their foundation there.
Oh, nice. You love to see it. Is there any like flavor notes that come off the can? Do they
Yeah.
explain the beer a little bit?
So this one, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Angry Orchard, how sweet it is, and it's good, but it's not the greatest. This one's a little bit more dry, so it's a lot better of a cider than your real sweet cider. So it has more of a has more taste kind of to it than other ciders do. So that's kind of interesting. It's a little bit more drier, which is pretty good. I don't like a real sweet cider. So.
I'm with you. In fact, when it comes to like wine, which I guess would be like the next step, like bubbly wine would be closer to cider, I guess. I actually found that like dry white wine is probably like my favorite style of wine. Like, I guess there's like a whole bunch of styles of wine. that area of wine, I guess, is where I'm at.
Yeah.
Dry white.
So I actually like a sweeter white wine, so I'm a little bit different on that spectrum. It's
say Rhine? Rhine or wine?
Wine. Oh, a sweeter wine.
I've heard of Rhine.
I'm definitely a dry red, so we got like everywhere.
I haven't had a lot of dry reds, but I like red. But like, I got to be in the mood for that. Like, usually it's like smoky.
That's what I like.
Closer to like a bourbon.
Yeah.
So I got to be in the mood for bourbon. But like,
no, I can't.
I find that dry white is closer to like cider or beer. So I guess I tend to enjoy that more. That's kind of what I found.
So what are we drinking? Because
what are we drinking? Well, I was in Reading a few weeks ago, and I was in Mary's Six Pack and more.
Sorry, I took a sip before we got into it, so I couldn't wait.
At the behest of my girlfriend, or at the suggestion of my girlfriend, because I was just gonna say, oh, let's go home, and she's like, "You want to go to Mary's?" I was like, "Oh, wow, that's a great idea." So we went in there, and then she found this because my ass walked right by it because it was on the bottom shelf, tucked all the way in the back. And it's Black is Beautiful. Now, if you're not familiar, Black is Beautiful is actually an initiative done by Weathered Souls in San Antonio, Texas, Black-owned brewery. They have a base recipe of their Imperial Stout, and you can brew this and either brew the base recipe or add your own twist to it. And all the labels look like this right here. This is the original label, and then every brewery that follows the initiative will have their own label, like they have their own icon on it. Like this is by Hermit Thrush. It's kind of hard to see because it's like gold, but they'll have their own like insignia on it as well. A lot of these are brewed, and a lot of the proceeds go to local causes and diversity and inclusion causes in whatever area the brewery is in. But it's crazy because when this started, I thought it was going to be like maybe like one or two different breweries are going to do it. It's going to be a limited time thing. And it's been like 7 to 8 months that they've been doing this now, this Black is Beautiful initiative. And
it's huge.
It's huge. And everyone seems to have a Black is Beautiful beer now. And it's crazy because it all comes back to Weathered Souls, and it all comes back to a Black owned business that wanted to do something impactful. And now they have businesses that might not normally be, in this realm of caring about what's going on in the community. They're at least doing something, or at least having like their mind open to doing something more than just being a business in their area.
Right. And like going forward with this, like we're seeing breweries now being in their second rendition of a Black is Beautiful series. And like for PA, there's like one Black owned brewing company, Harris Family out of Harrisburg. And so I think they've even done one or two now. So it's really interesting to see. It really segues into what this whole conversation I think is going to be about, is representation and inclusion and just opportunities within different industries. So I'm really excited to just learn a little bit more about the Connect and explain to our audience a little bit more about who you are and what this whole initiative is, essentially. So before we get into that, we just like to continue teasing our guests. Do you want to get into the sample game? How do we do this on,
how are we
like,
doing
do you
the
just close your
sample game?
eyes? Yeah, do you just close your eyes as I bring this up? Like, just look away.
Okay, oh, that's right, because you have your computer.
Yeah.
So I need to go grab, why don't I grab my computer while you're bringing the sample up?
Right.
And while we're doing this, what would you rate your cider on
right.
a scale from 1 to 5?
Ooh, 1 to 5. I'll give it a 3. Definitely a solid. Yeah, I've had one that I've had in DC. It's a DC brewery. Can't remember the name of it, but that was the best cider I've ever had. And I think it's actually, I'm not even going to try because I might jack it up, but that was the best cider I've ever had. This one's a good 3. I like it. So I didn't want to go too high on it because it's the first time trying it. So I got to give it a second try to see if I get it.
Yeah, you said it was good and you're giving it a 3 out of 5?
I mean, I'm a hard critic, you know.
I get that. That is me. My average rating on Untapped, which is the beer app we use, is 3.55. That's gone up 0.03.
You were really, yeah, I think mine is much closer to 4. But I like, our scales are different. Yeah. Like when I think good, I think it has to be a 4, and that's like my baseline. Okay. Like I would drink it again. Anything under that is kind of like or no.
Whereas like I will give anything in like the 3 range, you know, I'll drink it again. It's just I can't give it a 5.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully you're going to be able to hear the music well. So the sample game, what we do is we will pick the way that we go about it usually is we'll find a popular song, and then there's a website called whosampled.com that I absolutely love. You type in that song and it will tell you what songs it sampled to generate the beat, or sometimes it's even the lyrics. But what we'll do is we'll play the original, and then the other person has to guess who sampled it and what the modern version of it is. Sometimes there's multiple answers too. So yeah. So
wait, quickly, do we want to rate our beers on here?
Oh yes.
Do we want to rate them? This, by the way, this rendition of the Black is Beautiful is a kettle soured Imperial IPA. So it was soured and then it was put in a kettle. Which kettle is like if you've heard of like barrel aged stuff, or you know, whiskeys and wines are barrel aged. They take beer and they barrel age it as well, and they'll also age it in like cast iron kettles, if you will, which gives it a different like funk. It gives it a different aging process. So that's what we're drinking here, and I would go like 4.5 for me. Honestly, this is like delicious. It's absolutely delicious. It's like tart, but
I'd give it a 4.25 easily.
4.2.
Yeah. Got to be difficult. Can't give you the same rating.
So the combined rating, rounding up, would be a 4.5.
Exactly. So this is how we get away with it.
But
you ready?
Delicious. Okay. Yes.
All right. Cool. Close your eyes.
Good.
Close your eyes.
Oh, that's right. I gotta close my eyes.
Yeah, you gotta close your eyes. But all right. So this sample is from Quincy Jones in 19. Look straight at the screen.
I didn't even notice what it was.
Quincy Jones, 1962, and it's Soul Bossa Nova.
Wait, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. So here's the sample. So you know it, but do you know the sample?
Ooh, I know a couple off the top of my head. So first one obviously is Austin Powers,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Austin Powers definitely did this.
Yeah, and then Ludacris actually sampled it.
Yeah.
So that was so definitely know that one.
Yes. Do you know what song?
Is it number one spot? Yeah.
Make it too hard. Yeah, I didn't want to make it too hard. I just thought it would be a fun sample. Like
that's a fun
I was going through Tidal. Tidal has a lot of really good playlists based off of other people's samples, and they did a Quincy Jones playlist based off of samples. And I was scrolling through, saw number one spot. And I was just like, Ludacris.
Boy, mine's a little more. Mine's slightly more eccentric, I guess. Okay, I don't know if 100 is going to be way too loud.
Yeah, we'll hear.
All right, you have to kind of look away because I'm going to put it up so that everyone here can hear it. All right, are we ready? Here goes nothing. Oh crap! This is Giovanni Cristiani from 1985. Fragments of Crystal.
Sounds like Fragments of Crystals.
That's like the bass line of the whole beat for this song. Does anyone have an idea?
Well, it's you. I'm always going to ask, is it Lupe?
No, it's not, sir.
Can you play it again?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Let's run. Right. I believe this might be a xylophone, not a crystal.
All right, can you give us what year was the newer version?
2016.
2016.
Throws out 3-6 Mafia.
What 3-6 Mafia song sounds like that?
Look, they are dark and foreboding.
I don't know. It sounds. I was gonna probably be wrong, but it sounded like Casey Veggies. Could be wrong.
No, it's no, but actually, you're in kind of like the
Earl.
Not that close. Well, okay. No. Okay, Earl's on the song. He's on the song.
So is it Tyler?
No.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
That's helpful.
Is Earl, for all the listeners.
Wow, I'm stumped.
You're stumped. I stumped you.
You stumped me. Usually this is how I get you, but
and this is actually like a popular song, but it's like by not a like so popular artist. So that's where the eccentric part comes in.
I got nothing.
No one got nothing. And nobody got nothing. Okay, this is Danny Brown featuring Kendrick Lamar, Ab-Soul, and Earl Sweatshirt, Really Though, from his 2016 album Atrocity Exhibition.
Oof. Now I hear it.
More Danny Brown besides Grown Ups, I'd be okay, but I know like 2 songs by Danny.
All right.
That was a good one. Have you ever listened to Danny Brown?
Nope, which is kind of odd because I'm pretty good at listening to my music there in Variety. That's why I mentioned Casey Veggies, but
that was a good like eccentric. Eccentric's not the word I'm thinking of. Underground maybe, but Danny Brown isn't underground anymore. But yeah, Danny Brown, he's from Detroit. He's a Detroit guy, but like he's very, very iconic for his voice.
Was he on Detroit vs. Everything?
Yeah. He was on that Detroit vs. Everybody song with everybody from Detroit.
From Detroit, yeah.
So but like the eccentric, like really high nasally voice is kind of like his iconic thing. I don't know what other song. I don't know what songs he was on really to even say, hey, go listen to this popular song and you'll recognize his voice.
I would just say Grown Ups. Like if you listen to Grown Ups, that was probably really one of his most popular songs. So
that song that I played was his most popular song in terms of like chart topping stuff. Yeah, so go listen to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always enjoy doing some music stuff because that was always a heavy part of our life. You know, playing video games, being at the basketball court, we always were listening to music. So we always try to include that as much as possible.
Yeah, even if I don't listen to music nearly as much, which is why all my music selections are like from 5 to 10 years ago. So. and obscure.
But now we can get into the show. It's been a little bit of time. We did the beer, we did the music sample, but we are so excited. This is our first real partnership. Like, we were sponsored by Oak Brook Brewing Company, which was incredible. But it's going to be fun to actually talk about how this partnership came to be. And before we get into any of that, I would just like you to introduce who you are.
Yeah, where do I even start, man? My name's Danielle. I currently, started a company called the Connect, a nonprofit organization, with realistically a bunch of my friends who work in the sports industry. One of the things that we realized was the lack of representation of minorities in C-level positions. I can count on my probably hand how many I've interacted with, and I've been in the sports industry for almost 10 years now, realistically. And, one day I was just over quarantines, kind of how a lot of brainstorming happens. I was chatting with my co-founder, Jen Prine, and, we were just chatting through, and I was like, hey, I have an idea of a nonprofit I want to start. It's called The Connect. Actually, I don't even think I had the name Connect yet. It was probably like the Sports Connect, or I was just playing around with a whole bunch of different names there. Some were pretty bad, but eventually I landed on the Connect. Just kept it nice and sweet. When you ever think of something, or when you're using a sentence, you just kind of say, I can connect you to this, or like, this is the connect to that organization. So I just kind of ran with that name. It's very easy to say, and it's also good for branding. Everyone says the word connect, so that's how we kept it there. But realistically, when we were chatting through what we want this organization to be, we were wanting to start on with working with college and high school students. We felt like that is the first beginning part of where we started. When I was talking with one of my former bosses about an internship I did, just mentioning how many minorities have been in the internship with him, and he said I was the first and only person of color that applied for an internship within this sports industry and within that team. And that was back in 2012. And to see that still hasn't, progressed, which was crazy and mind-boggling to me, especially where the sports is right in the inner city of Reading. And, as we know, that's a heavily populated, heavily minority influenced area. And to be the first and only having that internship was kind of still crazy to me. So when I thought about where we need to start, it's with the college and high school students. And realistically, what it is to educate, to mentor, and to help them achieve having a career in the sports industry, a sports entertainment industry. We felt like the first place is not knowing about these opportunities, the different career paths that you can do. You could be in analytics, you could be a mathematician, you can do podcasts. My former job, Monumental Sports Entertainment, they had so many different umbrellas underneath that, and that underneath that job there is mind-boggling to what you could do in that sports realm and just still be attached to the sports team. And I felt like our urban community doesn't know about that. We know about the coaches, we know about the players, but we don't know about the business side of sports. And that's where the brainchild of the Connect came from.
And we talked,
We both went to the Obama hand there.
The Obama hand, yeah. So it's often about that exposure, and that's the opportunity. I think that's always something that we talk about, is just how often are people at least being shown what availability is out there, what options are out there to them. And it's so, I think the Connect is the perfect name because it speaks on so many levels on how you're connecting these opportunities, but even just right now in just a interview style, the Connect, what is the Connect here, right? What's going on here? So
yeah,
Chris and I have been friends since kindergarten, right? Since like age 5, maybe 4 or 5 years old. So we've gone on 2 decades of being a friendship. And within that time, I was playing tennis a lot sooner than he did. And so I was being coached by you playing tennis. And then I eventually ended up coaching him among other players. And I just wanted to.
And now I'm a beast.
Oh man,
His service nasty.
Not right now. I haven't played.
How, if you had to clock it, how fast do you think you can serve?
Oh, I could get triple digits.
Okay. It's not bad, not bad.
Triple digits I could get, but I could get there.
Okay, I like it.
I would definitely assume that we could definitely hit the triple digits because we were baseball players, so we know what that speed coming in looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to briefly, just even mention that quickly. It's just, from Reading, like what was that? How did your trajectory go? You went from the only sport I know you for is tennis. So I want to even like hear a little bit more about that backstory. What sports were you introduced to, and then as you had the luxury or the opportunity, and you put in a lot of hard work to actually go and then play collegiately. I just want to hear about your whole experience in the sports industry because that helps with the Connect story, I think.
For sure. I started playing tennis when I was 5 years old, actually. I guess I'm aging myself now. My favorite player back then was Andre Agassi. Bald head Andre Agassi, not radical 80s Andre Agassi. It kind of all started, I have an older brother, he played football. And I was always just running around, just trying to hang out with your older sibling there. So I told my parents I wanted to play football. And like, let's put a racket in your hand and see where this goes. So realistically, that was probably the best thing that they've ever done for me. Being in the inner city, tennis isn't really a sport that's talked about a lot because it is expensive, as you know, Tyler and Chris. Just purchasing a racket, the cost of purchasing a racket, a decent racket at that, and the maintenance to keep up with it can be very costly. So I played tennis, I played basketball. I ran a little bit of track. I was all around, I'll be honest, not to toot my own horn, but I was all around good athlete to be. But I stuck with tennis throughout high school. I stopped playing basketball, which was probably maybe not the best decision looking back at it now, but I wanted to focus strictly on tennis. And then that earned me a scholarship to Rider University, which is a small D1 school in New Jersey, right between Princeton and Rutgers. We actually played Princeton. I could walk on their campus and act like I was a student. I may have done that once or twice. But when we played Princeton, we got our asses kicked. Like they were just like on a different level of D1 tennis that I had never seen before. But that was a great experience. It took me places that I never thought at the time I would go to. I went all the way up to Niagara to play tennis there, and we did laps around the Niagara Falls just to warm up. So like having that experience during the winter time was pretty stupid of us. You're college kids, you do stupid things, but that, and then at the time I never thought I would be at the Naval Academy. I got to play at the Naval Academy and introduced to that type of atmosphere. So it's taken me a long way, and realistically it introduced me to a lot of different things that I knew I could do professionally. And one of those things was having a career in sports. And that's kind of where I got my start with the Fightin' Phils. They used to be the Reading Phillies back in the day. I did an internship with them, had no clue what the business of sports looked at. I remember Mike Robinson's his name. He was the one who hired me, the director of community marketing there. Okay. And he he asked me what department I wanted to work in. And the only department I knew off the top of my head was marketing. So I was just like, marketing, I want to work in marketing. No clue what marketing really was in the sports industry. No clue what like the ticket department did or sales or anything like that. And actually he put me in the ticket sales department, which is even more hilarious. But that brought me all the way down here to live in Maryland, where I took a job with the Bowie Bay Sox for a stint. But then I worked my way with Monumental Sports and Entertainment. It's kind of where I spent majority of my career. They own the Mystics, the Wizards, the Capitals, a couple esports teams. They're a conglomerate. They're huge. Yeah, it's a great company to work for, a great owner to work for it, which is even more important than just being a great company to work for. Because there's another Washington team down here that you don't want to mention, you stay away from. There's a job opening, you kind of steer clear from it. But so Monumental Sports is complete opposite of that, and that starts from ownership. But I worked my way from the ticket sales department all the way up to our global partnerships marketing team. And our partnerships team, it's just a whole different world. You're working with C-level clients. I worked on the Capital One account, which is the owning rights for the actual arena. So working on those big accounts just exposed me to bigger things and broader things and networking with different people in the industry. And it's been a blessing, to be honest, that I've had this kind of lavish career in sports and entertainment. I still do, which is really awesome. I actually got 2 championship rings, which is pretty amazing. I should have brought them out, but I forget about them sometimes.
But they're nothing.
So from 2 Washington teams, then, so that
yes.
would be the Nationals and the Capitals?
No. So the Capitals won, our Mystics won, and then we had an AFL team called the Washington Valor, which back they won a championship in the AFL as well. So I have so Washington has some winners, just from one company.
I wanted to ask you 2 questions that came to my mind. The one was one, how was it like playing at Navy? Like you mentioned the atmosphere being different, or like the field being different. How was it like playing at a place that to me would seem like ridiculously structured and like really like hard line? And how does that I've always wondered how that kind of like translates to their sports, because I was sent a recruitment package by West Point when I was in high school for football.
Okay.
And I was like, fuck nope, not doing it. But that always kind of ran in my mind then, like,
what do those players look like?
Yeah, what do those players look like? Like, what do they, how do they operate? Are they just normal people? Are they robots? Like, what kind of environment is that?
Yeah. So first thing first, tennis, you don't sing the national anthem. You don't do anything. You just shake your hands. You get introduced to your opponent, which is still really structured. First Navy match, their players singing the national anthem, and my team's just like, okay, this is a little weird. We never had before a tennis match anyone sing the national anthem, and it was really kind of crazy to experience that. But of course, being where we were made sense. Another thing, when we're warming up, they were missing a serve or something. I think they had to do like push-ups. Like it was kind of crazy when they did that. They didn't do it during a match, but during like our warm-ups and stuff, they were doing push-ups and stuff. So it was very strict.
They wonder why like their serves aren't good, and it's like, well, I was doing 100 push-ups before I actually.
What was his name? Celtics.
Celtics.
He did that one time. Oh my god, why can't he? He missed a free throw and he ended up doing push-ups.
Big like high name player? Or
yeah.
Rondo.
It wasn't Rondo. Oh shit.
Paul
Pierce.
Didn't
he do? Yeah, I think he did push-ups the one time. That's just what it reminds me of.
Yeah. I know Mike Evans from Tampa does the push-ups when he drops.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, like just talking about it is going to Hillcrest like in middle school for me, and doing I ended up being one of the better players in a group that I was set in, and I wasn't playing up to my ability, and one of the coaches, I know.
Oh, and then you said you weren't playing up to your ability.
I wasn't.
Take that. I had many times that happened to me down there.
Yeah. And that's what I want to get to. But is Coach Paul, I think his name was. He would. Yeah, I loved him. He got on my case about it, and he was just like, there's no reason that you can't hit above the net against any of these players. As soon as the ball goes in the net, that's 5 push-ups. You can either do them right away, or you can do them at the end of the session. So I just remember doing push-ups after every. So that kind of reminds me of that situation. But going forward from all of this, I know you had another question.
Oh yeah, the second question was, this one's pretty easy. It's you mentioned sea level a couple of times, and I'm assuming that's like sports industry jargon that I don't know. So
corporate.
It is corporate level, and what sea level means is people director and above. So your VPs, your presidents, your CFOs, your COOs. I never heard of a CPO until like I started working in more the corporate setting, and it's like chief police people officer, and I was just like, what? Are we just making up positions now? But like there's so many different titles there. But yeah, that's what C level typically means, like your chiefs, your COOs, your CEOs, your CPOs, your CFOs.
People that are really high up there, basically, C level.
Yes.
Right. And so this isn't back to the point I was trying to bring up with the Hillcrest thing, but no, it's okay. It's a conversation I wanted to have with you because I feel like this is very on point with what the Connect is aiming to do. Is a lot of times I'll jump into conversations with people about the lack of opportunity, the the lack of generational wealth for the Black community, and a lot of where these hindrances come into play when we're talking about, oh, slavery was like 400 years ago, why don't you get over it, and all these other elements that exactly, that come into prosperity and actually being better off as a people. And a couple of people will bring it up to me. They'll look at all of the Black wealth that exists within the sports industry when you're talking about players.
That's sorry ass fucking point.
Right, but
it's
to the Connect's point is like you see players and you see this wealth that exists within players, but then once we start breaking it down beyond that, when we start then looking from players to coaches, but then even further from coaches to administration
and to your point, it's not about who's making money. One, it's about who, they're making money in an industry, and that industry needs to be looked at in kind of like in a bubble. How much are they making compared to their contemporaries or people that are in their industry? For one. The second big part of that is influence. They might be celebrities, and celebrity grants you, certain privileges and influences, but influence within your industry, it's the people that are in charge of making the money for the industry. And while they make the money for the industry, they're also expendable more so than someone else who's on the business end of things, on the money-making side of things.
It's definitely crazy. I mean, I can root. I go on tangents. You can ask my friends, my family, like how you can almost root everything back to slavery. It's kind of crazy. But it's the business. And if you look at, I think Forbes just did, their top 30 under 30. And if you look at that list in the sports industry, most of those people, there's a couple athletes on there. And then Natasha Cloud, she's doing great work. And there's a couple other big name athletes on there. Ben Simmons, Sixers guy. But if you look at the majority of that list, it's the business side of those 30 under 30 people. It's the agents that are on that list. It's the person selling corporate partnerships to Mountain Dew, to Hyperice. The person who inked the deal for the NBA to have Hyperice as a sponsorship. That's huge. The commission on that is huge. That's big money right there that individual or that team is getting. I just know from Capital One account, the commission payoff for landing that deal, it's like, it sets you up for a very long time, just to put it that way. The payout on it it's very nice. So, it's just kind of crazy that, the power comes from the owners. The players, yes, they're the influentials. They're the ones that are, driving your fans there. But the ultimate power comes from your business and your owners, your CFOs and the owner collaborating to making that star to star, essentially. Just a quick story. When I was working with the Mystics, actually Jen and I, the co-founder of the Connect with Me, we were talking about how, we actually helped make one of the players on our team more prominent just because of the marketing we were doing around her, and so like that type of power is very strong in the business side. And what I always tell kids and students, it's like, it's cool to be a player, it's cool to be a coach, but how cool is it to own the players? And I mean, own's probably not the right word, but
it is, because it's what's happening.
It is.
And that's your point when you said you can bring everything back to slavery. It's like, no, that's definitely not a negative that you do that, because with sports, you can bring it back. I mean, it's almost like item line for line in terms of chattel slavery. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. When I say there's influence for these players to, with their celebrity to influence the world around them, it's only so much as, compared to like a slave back in
Yeah.
the day, and the owner and the slave master,
Yeah.
and the power they had, with the country. The power that the slave had was really with, okay, if we all stopped working, that would screw up the system.
Yeah.
If we raised a stink, that would throw off the system. However, that's perceived power, but then in the actual power, okay, we can get killed for this, so we're being suppressed that way. The players, they can raise a stink, they could lose their starting position, they could lose their spot on the team.
Yeah.
If they piss off the owner or administration,
Yeah.
whoever it is, and then they lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
So they're still being controlled subliminally. And I think, like, back to the point of kind of the backside of sports industry, we don't really think about the fact that there's a business and to sports. We always just think of it, we have the athletes and they're doing it because they love it and that's all they're doing it for. And if they don't do it for the love of the game, then what are they really doing, right? When really they're getting all this money because there's tenfold, hundredfold, thousandfold money being made off of that product. And
yeah,
there's space for people to inhabit in terms of working in the business end of that no one really thinks about or talks about. I know when I was in high school, I never really knew or thought about the fact that, hey, like, if you went into accounting, you could work in the sports industry. If you went into marketing, you could work in the sports industry. No one really thinks about that. No one really tells you, hey, you love sports, you grew up on sports. Listen, you could still be around all of that and still do something that isn't physically sports related. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially because I feel like this is where the Connect is highlighted. This is the whole point.
For sure. And before I go back to that, I do have to say the NBA and realistically the WNBA has been doing it for years, but the NBA players, they're really owning their power and they're making sure that the owners are listening, even to the point where for NBA players, they actually don't call them owners too much anymore. They're changing the names and making those proper changes to get away from kind of that slave mentality of owner and trading and selling, of people. But it's the NFL that still has that ownership mentality, and unfortunately I might offend some political connects, but that slave mentality that they have over those players, and we saw it with Colin Kaepernick, we saw it with I think Eric Smith with what they do with him, and a couple, or Reed, I think his name is Reed. Yes, yeah. And we saw what they did to those players, and it's a shame, one person loses their livelihood for standing up for something, and then the other person joins them in standing up for something, and they get criticized, they get bashed by the president. Who gets bashed by the president like that, for standing up for something that's right? I mean, not this current president. Everyone gets bashed by this current.
A whole different type of president.
It is, but
he's still the president technically.
He is.
But he's not my president.
Not mine either. So
that's an interesting point that you brought up. The fact that the WNBA has been so much better with social issues and been so much more proactive, and really it comes down to the fact that the sport itself lends individuals to having a bit more power in that sport than other sports, because it's far less people, and the individual, like with basketball, the individual can really make a difference on a team. The individual in football, not as much, and they have less bargaining power because of that. But it's because the players really identify with the fact that, hey, I have power and I'm going to use it for the greater good. But the women have been, as much as the NBA has been very good lately with that, the WNBA has been light years ahead with that, and it doesn't get talked about a lot.
No, unfortunately it doesn't. Those women out there, they're pushing the social issues really strong, really heavily, and the media coverage doesn't cover it until LeBron James retweets it or something along those lines, which is unfortunate, but that doesn't stop them from what they're doing it, because they're not doing it for media coverage or publicity. They're doing it because that's what they wholeheartedly believe. And that's I think what's great about, they understand their power really well. And unfortunately, they have coaches and organizations that are not going to penalize them. They're not going to, they allow them to express themselves in a proper manner, as long as that, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I think what you just said, that with the WNBA is not doing it for necessarily for clout or for like media chasing, is I think that was one of the big draws to what you're doing with the Connect, was it's not necessarily about getting the most press, but it's about doing the right thing, and I can really get behind it. We talked about opportunities that were presented to us as tennis players coming up in the city of Reading, or just as sports industry professionals. You briefly, Chris, you briefly mentioned this too, is there's always that class project about what do you see yourself as being when you grow up. Don't say a professional athlete. And they never went beyond saying, think how you can be a part of the sports industry without being on the floor or being on the field.
Yeah.
And so I just, that's where I would like you to expand upon, or like talk a little bit more about the Connect and what you're looking to do, because it's about the opportunity that exists that's not outwardly expressed to the people in a city that opportunities exist. Reading has so many sports opportunities, but for you to be one of the only interns that is a person of color or a Black woman, like that makes no sense to me. I just want to hear about why the Connect is so important to you.
Yeah, the Connect's so important to me because I faced that. Just being in the sports industry itself, going up that corporate ladder for a female is tough. Going up that corporate ladder as a Black female is even tougher. So like one of the reasons, if I can help anyone, a minority, it doesn't have to be Black, just a minority person, help climb that ladder, make it a little bit easier for them by paving the way or introducing them to the right people. That's where that passion comes from for me, my experience, I'm fortunate. My experience was great because not a lot of people make it in the sports industry. It's probably the most applied for jobs, but there's only a few jobs out there. So I am very fortunate and grateful for the experience that I have. But where does that fortunate and being grateful stop when I need to be on that director's level, when we need to be in those VP and those meetings that are making decisions that impact our communities and impact the people we're selling to, essentially. And one of the things that I've always noticed was, and I hated it, I'll be honest, I hated it to the point where it just used to like burn me up, and I'd probably be even tougher on this person than another person, is when I had to hire or interview other people who are being interviewed or hired because their dad is friends with the CFO or the owner, and they had that immediate connection, and I can't hire the person I want to hire, even though they're more qualified, because you don't want to burn those bridges with that CFO and that person there. And that always used to burn me up. And one of the things that we don't see is when we don't have people of color or minorities in those positions, they don't think about other people. They just see their group of friends, they see that. And when you have hires like Derek Jeter, what he did with the Miami Marlins by hiring the first Asian female to be the GM, that's huge. And do you think that happens with, I don't want to categorize, but it may not happen with having a white person that's in Derek Jeter's position. He might not be thinking broader and seeing the different people that are out there that are just as qualified. So that's why it's important to have those people in those positions of power, because they're the ones controlling the hiring. One of the things, I had a mentor who I was talking to about just going up to be into those director positions. Like, our records are the same, our resumes are pretty much the same. We've done some of the similar things. I may have even done even more than this person, but like, what was the reason why this person would get hired over me? And he simply said, he was like, sometimes it just comes down to who you want to have a beer at. No pun intended with the show, but have a beer with at the end of the night. And me being a Black female talking to a white male, I'm like, well, that's not me probably. Even though he's my mentor and everything, but sometimes that's where you need that.
Well, you just brought it up. Like, that's the whole point of our show, and I think it's a perfect cross-section of your organization and our organization. Is it's all about who you want to have a beer with. And as innocent of a phrase as that might have sounded,
it alienates a whole bunch of people.
It really does.
Your average beer drinker, craft beer drinker especially, is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
Your average craft beer drinker is what, 35-year-old white cis male.
Yep.
With a beard, black thick frame glasses,
with a beard and money,
and a flannel shirt, earning at least $72,000 to $99,000 a year.
I like in that range.
Right.
Like, I could be in that range.
The fact that you're like at the low end of that range, like you're just fighting to get into that low end of the range.
Yeah, I'm still fighting to get into that low end.
But that's the conversation to be had. And we're talking about the sports industry, and not to take away from all of the actual like experience and expertise that takes in place. But when we're talking about engineers, when we're talking about different like career paths, and we're really speaking on what does all this actually mean, the back wording behind all of it. And that's why when you reached out to me about partnership, having this partnership with the Connect, it was really exciting because I see the bigger vision that you have for people in this industry.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Because it's as much as we talk about sports and then craft beer, like two completely different things that don't really interconnect. But the fact of the matter is, the reasons why they aren't diverse are exactly the same, because it speaks to a societal issue. It speaks to an issue of history and systemic suppression of a people. So. Yeah. That's why it's so impactful for us to connect on these things, because we're fighting the same thing.
There we go. Marketing.
There we go. The connection with this whole thing is the fact that the issues we're fighting are the same issues. It's just how are they affecting our different industries or our different walks of life. It just comes back to the same exact issues.
Right. So as we're wrapping this up, what I would like to get from you is this first question would be, in a perfect world, how does the Connect fit into the sports industry? What do you see? Like, you've put in the time, you've built up every single connection that you needed to build up. What is happening now? What does the Connect's organization, what do you provide to people?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I'll take it a couple ways. In a perfect world, I want to have someone who's went through our Connect program to be the future CFO of a sports team. That's in a perfect world. That's my dream, is to have a kid who was in high school or in college, who kind of went through, did the mentorship, made the proper connections. We helped him get into an organization, and they surpassed our expectations and now are running that organization. So in a perfect world, that's just the small pillar that I would love to happen for the kids that we're talking to get there. The other word, I guess, is, it sounds stupid, but like world domination in kind of a way. I want to be connected to more NFL teams. I want to be connected to NBA teams that are using our platforms to hire diverse candidates. Right now, we are working on a couple partnerships with a couple teams and a couple organizations that are doing that and are going to be working with us to get more of a diverse candidate pool to pull from. So in a perfect world, in a couple of years, I guess my stretch goal would be to be in every NFL team, to be in every NBA team, and to be with the big agencies as well. That your CAAs, your Octagons, your Wassermans, those types of agents, Elevate Sports, those agencies as well, that they're using our platform to diverse their candidate pool.
Wow. Yeah. First of all, I didn't even know half the names you just. I'm so you know, we're so removed from the industry, but
Yeah.
just to throw those names out there as like even just like research pieces is fantastic information for people who are listening. But you know, besides what the Connect, you know, that's the end goal. But what are you doing right now? What are you doing to get to that end goal? What have you done? Because you've only been going, you know, basically since the pandemic, right? So
yeah. So realistically, since August, we've been going, and we're very fortunate. We're growing really fast. We held our first event in August, and when we held our first event, we're like, okay, our goal is to have 10 people tune in to this event. And when we started marketing it and putting it out on our social networks, the response that we were getting from not only college students that are interested in it, but also entry level or just recent graduates that signed up to be a part of our first event. It was over 50 people. And we were just like, okay, people want this, people need this, and this is something that is interested. So we're on the right track there. So right now, our main pillar we're working on is just engagement. So that you'll see our virtual chats. We have a virtual chat coming up on January 13th. One of the features that are going to be on the chat is actually, slight plug, I'm sorry for that, but one of the features people we're going to have featured on that panel is Jennifer King, who is the assistant football coach to the Washington football team. And then we also have Maria Giovanetti as assistant mystics. And those two names are very, you know, powerful names because they are one of the first in their respective fields. You know, assistant GM, that's huge. Assistant coach, that's huge, especially in football. That's really huge. And so we're growing and we're educating our college students and our high school students and our entry level students about what it takes to kind of get in these positions. How are you branding yourself properly to go out into those interviews? Especially, how are you branding yourself as a minority to stand out in a huge candidate pool? And that's really important to hone in upon, is how you stand out and how you self-brand yourself. That's the biggest part. And you can take that into any business world, any world, realistically, as craft beer. How are you branding yourself? Like me personally, after we're done here, I don't drink beer, but I'm going to be looking up that group that you guys mentioned. And I'm definitely going to be telling my brother, who does drink craft beer, to go check that out, you know? So right there, it's like, it's how are you branding yourself and the importance of branding yourself and standing out as a minority, which is pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Dang, I put my finger up because
I thought you had
a point. I had it. It was in here. Hold on. I got it.
Well, I just think
I got it.
I just think it, oh, got it.
I
All
thought
right.
it. As I'm thinking. So then you talk about the college kids that you have, the mentorship program. How can people either apply or get in touch with you to make this happen?
That was my
Is that going to
be? So right now, the main way to kind of get in touch with us, especially just to be aware, is on our social media channels. If you have a LinkedIn, I very highly recommend creating one if you don't have one yet. That is where a lot of the business people do their business, per se. I've reached out to some people I never thought I'd have a conversation with before, but, you know, just going on a whim, you know, I've talked to people at really high people at Rock Nation just by saying, hey, I'd love to just set up a conversation with you for like 10 or 15 minutes. And that actually worked. I was surprised. I was shocked. But, you know, LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and we're on Instagram. So definitely find us on all three of those channels. Send us a direct message. Sade, who runs our social team, she's very responsive.
Grad.
Yeah, she is an IUP grad.
I thought you were just hyped about the name.
No, shut up. No, Sade is an IUP grad. She, yeah, we went to the same school,
Nice.
same major, so that's why I get really excited with Sade, because she does some really cool things. And when I saw that you guys brought her on, I was really excited, because it's a writing-based thing, but then also having just that connection beyond it is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
That's where you talk about LinkedIn and social media platforms, and a lot of people don't view LinkedIn as another extension of social media. I mean, it's business social media, but it's still a social media platform. You still should approach it in the exact same way you approach your social media if you use it as a business tool.
Yes,
and I think you guys do it exceptionally well. We don't, but you do.
We have a social media?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now Instagram is where we thrive. But
Yeah.
when you have that depth and everything, like for us, it's really exciting to see what you guys are doing in a nonprofit sense, in a nonprofit world, but how you utilize social media, not just in a very traditional, if you would call it traditional. Social media is far from it,
Yeah.
but
it's more traditional now than you think, right?
Yeah, that's
to
very
expand
true.
it into using that same principle with LinkedIn is very exciting. I don't know. I would love to continue this conversation. I think what you guys are providing is just extremely needed, extremely just.
It's so impactful for communities that we come from because one, ironically, it's marketable. You know, you can go to Reading High and be like, hey, do you want to work in sports? Like, hey, are you not great at sports, but you love sports? Hey, are you great at math? You can still be in sports. Like, you can still be around sports, like closer than you've ever been in your life. And I think
working with the players, if you want to, as stats, you know,
stats or trainer, you know, if you get into medical things, there's so many options that we don't think about, and I think it just takes, you know, people like you to really get that idea out to kids, you know, in high school.
Yeah.
Really get them on a very productive and fulfilling path in life.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, I have one last question. You had said a word that is a key word to me. I don't know if you have much
beer.
Yeah.
Craft beer.
I don't know if you have many more questions to ask, but you said privilege at one point, and I think that's a very key word because a lot of the conversations I have around race relations and when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, the word privilege scares people a lot, and they take it as they take it offensively sometimes. They like, well, I'm not privileged. I had to go through all these struggles. And what I've learned about privilege is it is something that many of us are fighting for and fighting towards. We want to. Everybody wants to leave this world with more privilege than they had when they started. And I think that the Connect allows for that in a way. I think there are, I think we have to rethink how we approach this word privilege. And I think you are providing privilege to a lot of people who wouldn't be allowed that privilege in the first place. And I just want to hear you speak about what opportunities the Connect is allowing.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think I might have to bring you along with my meetings, Tyler. Just what you just said there about privilege, that speaks volumes of exactly what we're trying to do. And if you take advantage of everything, that's where privilege comes from. It's taking advantage of what you have in front of you. You know, that's kind of what privilege always meant to me is exactly that. So, you know, the person who might have been in a privileged sense because their dad knows that CFO, they took advantage of, hey, my dad knows that CFO, maybe I could get a job with this team. But the Connect, you know, what we do is exactly that. We bring you and we connect you to these hiring managers, to these jobs. Like, I don't know if you saw, well, a while ago, we did an opportunity with Adidas with their seed school, who was taking minority students. So the students that followed us, they see that connection. It's like, oh, I may not have saw that on a regular, and we posted about it. They applied. You see that type of advancement right there, just from different opportunities. Another one is like with Damian Lillard, what he's doing with Adidas is a really big, what they're doing right now is huge in terms of working with urban communities and getting them more involved with what they're doing, which is awesome. What he's doing with his brand is bringing that urban and his privilege to those students who are able to take advantage of that. And you never know what that may lead to with them in the future, with Adidas, with probably not Nike, because I doubt Nike's going to hire someone from Adidas, but you never know. But but with different industries like that and different organizations that people us kids who grew up in Reading, who went to Reading High School, who went to, Baltimore, St. Francis Academy, that they bring that right to them and allow them to use that privilege. And that's what we're doing. We're connecting those people and those organizations to our audience that is maybe not be as privileged as just, hey, my father is that, but it's like, hey, I have this organization that I could use to my advantage, and I can network with these people in a way that I may not have been able to just being out here on my own, trying to break into the industry.
Wow, that was fantastically put. Fantastic. As that phrase was not fantastically put. We have a couple questions that we normally ask people we interview.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of tailor it to the sports industry in this case. But the first question is, what boxes do you check in terms of demographic? What would you describe yourself? I describe myself as a cis Black man.
Same. Yeah. So I guess I would describe myself. I guess don't get me wrong, I'm still learning the proper, right. So I guess I would be a cis Black female. That's the box I always check. That's what I represent.
Okay, fantastic. And has your Blackness ever been questioned? Especially playing tennis in Reading, or
more times than you know, Chris. More times than you know. My own setting, especially with other Black females. I played tennis, like you said. I played tennis. I was fortunate enough to live above Hampton Boulevard. I was fortunate enough to have parents who could afford tennis lessons. So my Blackness was always questioned. Oh, and you hear the stereotypical joke, my last name is White, so you get that joke already off the bat. But it was questioned a lot. I speak very proper. You don't talk
Black.
I don't talk Black, but like if you take me there, I can talk Black, But yeah, so it's been questioned a lot growing up, especially growing up as a kid, as a teenager, as in middle school. It was definitely something I struggled with connecting with different our audience. It wasn't until college and probably my first job at my Monumental Sports where I really connected with my culture as much as I did. Working at Monumental, I met so many dope Black people, so many dope like Asian people, but I was able to really work with my people, and I saw them there, and that's when I really connected. It's like, okay, they don't care that I speak proper because they're speaking proper too. And you know what? We're both at this Travis Scott concert, doing our thing. So it was high school and in middle school, it was a little rougher for me, connecting with the Black audience as much as I would have loved to, so, but now I'm flourishing in it and I love every minute of it. So, it's been great.
And that kind of speaks to my last question, or our last question that we always have. I'm asking them, I guess. So it was, when was the first time that you saw yourself represented in your industry, in the sports industry, in the back end? Obviously, as athletes we're represented very well in terms of athletes, but in the back end where you were working, when was the first time you really represented?
So I'll go back to my time in Monumental because that's where I grew up. I always like to say I was there from when I was 21 to 28. So my director who hired me, she was the Black female director. She was the first person on the business money making side. There's a difference there, and I like to clarify. On the money making side, that was a director. She was the first time I saw a person who looked like me in that power. And I was in the industry for a little bit already, and knowing in that company who on the money making side who were the power connectors. So she was my first time. It was a short stint that I was underneath her. She moved on to bigger and better things. She is the president and COO of the Los Angeles Sparks. So she moved on to way bigger, better things. And I'm still glad.
Small thing.
To this day, I still reach out to her. I feel like she's a mentor to me. So I was really happy to have her for that short period of time working underneath her. I learned so much from her. I still go back to when we worked together and apply those things that she taught me and how to really conduct yourself and be a better person and kind of get to where you are, where you want to go as a Black female. So that's one of the people I look up to this day. I would love to be, on her level where she's at, still climbing to get there, but she's the first person I ever saw on the money making side of the business of sports. And she's always been an inspiration because what she's accomplished and what she's done. Her name's Danita Johnson, so go look her up, guys. It's big business when you're the president and COO of a team, and being a female, and being a Black female. It doesn't get spoken about a lot, but she's in our industry. She's a true champion, and everyone loves her.
A Black woman who pioneers anything is a true champion in this country.
Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. She gets to work with Magic Johnson, which is probably even more awesome. Like just slight work probably has his cell number.
I feel like there are endless questions I have for you. As somebody who was coached by you, you've always been somebody that I've seen doing these things and starting these initiatives, and have always been a source of inspiration for me. We're wrapping up the show. I just want to allow you an opportunity to say anything that you feel like hasn't been said, or that you would want to, any words of advice for people going forward.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say for sure. I've definitely reached out to people that meant a lot to me and where I've been. Of course, my family, my mom and my dad always pushed me to be greater than who I am. I'm sure they're going to be listening later on. So definitely shout out to mom and dad. A couple other people, Cab Twyman, Russell Moore, they took my tennis level to a different atmosphere that a coach has never done before. Anything, the power, the strength, my game was cultivated by Coach Rust and Coach Cab Twyman. So I owe them a lot. And, so they're two really important people in my coaching career that took me to the talent. They, quote unquote, taught me to play like a man in so many ways. They would just hit the ball at me so hard. I had no choice but to to be better. So those two people are some people I keep near and dear to me. And then, of course, I want to thank my team, Jen, Carrington, Sade. They're crushing it every day with me in the battlefield. And I call it a battlefield because it's an uphill climb until we get to where we want to be. So I just want to thank them real quick for just going on this journey with me. Friends, creating a business can be rough, but they're making it fun. So I love every minute working with them. Word of advice to anyone who's listening is you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's something I heard someone say before, and I was just like, it applies to everything that I want to do, especially if you want to break into the craft beer business. You have to get comfortable with being the only one in the room, and it might be an uncomfortable situation, but you have to do that. I mean, I'm really familiar with being the only one in the room, especially in the sports and entertainment industry. You look around the room, you're like, okay, is there any females in here? No. Are there any minorities in here? No. And you have to get comfortable talking to the CFOs and the CEOs and making in an uncomfortable situation where you may not have that backup. So that's kind of the biggest advice that I would kind of give is you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's just going to help you and propel you to where you want to be.
We appreciate you so much for jumping in here. We're going to leave all of the contact information to just talk to you, to get any type of opportunities with the Connect. It's going to be in our show notes because this is something that we 100% are behind and believe in. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Anytime, guys. Like, honestly, thank you guys for just, we're a brand new nonprofit organization. So I appreciate you guys just taking a chance with us and letting me kind of talk and let me talk about something I love doing. So I appreciate both of you.
We're definitely not taking a chance. That's
for sure. It's a calculated risk. That's not much of a risk at all.
Yeah.
So until next time, thank you everybody for listening. We are the Alternative Blacks, and peace.
Peace.